companies I worked for, things there worked differently. We had like a technical design team of 4 people, just technical design. We had a separate fabric purchaser, we had a costing analyst, we had a production manager, production coordinator, director of production. So lots of people. Whereas when you work for a smaller company, you have more responsibility. So you have to do everything from fabric purchasing, raw material quality control, to production, really fit management, and technical design as well. So it's very hands-on. And also, not to mention that, you know, in New York City, so that's a very entails to produce in New York City, and how different it is when you not doing overseas, when you're not overseeing every detail. So the things that, you know, as a production manager, as in the production department, we do not alter designs. Whatever the design that shows up on the runway, that is what we have to deliver. So the thing how it works is that, you know, during the conception stage, the production team does not have any say. We do not get involved. We sit in weekly meetings to catch any red flags, whether it pertains to raw material issues like pilling issues, shrinkage issues, or labor issues, fit issues, because our #1 concern is the durability of the product and the quality of the product. So I would always say for us, it's for the production department, it's always quality and fit and quality, and also working within the constraints of you know, cost and time. So the design team, how they work is that they can come up with any concept that they want. So basically, when you look at the trend forecast, how they come up with the trend forecast is they look at the fashion week that's happening in New York, London, Milan, and Paris. They look at these 4 places, what the designers are doing, and they come up with the trends. But we are what we think are the trend setters. We don't look at the trend forecast, we create the trends. And companies, mass-produced companies, or let's say high street brands like Zara, H&M, will look at our collections and, you know, get an inspiration or get a grasp on what they should see in the coming seasons as to what people are aligning towards in terms of trend. So that's what you have, a trickle-down theory and a trickle-up theory. So I would say that we believe in the trickle-down theory, but however, when you look at street style, that's the trickle-up theory, because we look at street style and what Gucci is trying to do, that's basically a trickle-up theory. But right now, because of the market that we deal with, a target market for the company Prabal Gurung, we do not do street style, because our customers are more in their mid-30s onwards up. So we don't look at street style, whereas say Alexander Wang, they have a younger target market, they would probably look at street style. And so, oops, I can't go to the next slide.
I was thinking, Magdalene, how about we give a brief introduction to your expertise to the students. I have a little paragraph here that is kind of prepared.
Okay. I would like to hear that too.
Awesome. So Miss Magdalene comes with years of experience in production for some of the most loved ready-to-wears at Altuzarra, Alexander Wang, and presently at Atelier Prabal Gurung, New York. And through today's conversation, what we would be focusing on is her journey and experience putting out some of the most iconic pieces at these luxury ready-to-wear houses. And some of these pieces have actually been graced by the wardrobes of the likes of Michelle Obama, Kate Middleton, and have most recently also made it to the Met. So you have a very special expert from the industry here today to take you through. And joining us on this call is also Miss Ankita Brahmi. She's the Department Head for Fashion and Luxury Brand Management, which is the postgraduate program that we offer at the Pune campus, to moderate this session. So I'd again take this opportunity to welcome everybody And Ms. Brahmi, I now forward it to you. Over to you, ma'am. One moment, you're on mute. Yes, please.
Yes, I welcome everyone, and I think it's one of the most. It's a very interesting time to have a masterclass. I hope, and I very much thank Magdalene for making time for this. Let's make the most of her presence. Gauri's already introduced her, and Magdalene is pretty charged up and to share all her experience and her insights. I would really request all of you to not leave. I see all of you have turned up in a huge number, and let's stay in the room while Magdalene is with us and make the most of her presence. I have shared a few questions with Magdalene already, and she will be answering those. And over to you, Magdalene.
All right, thank you so much for the introduction. Going on, I know it's getting late. I hope you've all had your dinner.
No. Please take all your time. We're all yours. I think most of us have even, just made special time for this. So don't worry.
Oh, thank you.
Take all your time. Yeah.
And let me also start, like, I currently work for Prabal Gurung, but the process of working has been the same. I work, it's the same process at Altuzarra, same process at Alexander Wang, except in bigger companies like Alexander Wang, like I was saying, we have many more people, different departments managing different aspects of the process, from raw material quality assurance to technical design to quality control. Whereas when I work for small companies like Altuzarra and Prabal Gurung, I manage everything. So it's more responsibility, but it did help me understand the start to finish process and how issues from raw materials can affect fit of the garment and vice versa. So let me go to my presentation now. Raw material sourcing. And now, actually, let's talk about raw material sourcing. Most companies.
Magdalene, I see. Are you trying to share your screen? I'm so sorry for interrupting you. Are you sharing your screen? Are you sharing your screen? Okay. Gauri, could you just?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because we are yet to see your screen.
Oh, let me go.
The green button down below which says share screen, please.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I've lost you guys. Wait.
Are you able to find it, Magdalene? It's the green button down below.
Green button, sorry.
It's at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, now
yes,
I was
awesome, great.
You see it now?
I think it takes a moment to just sort of load. Yes, it's loading. Super, yes, we can see it lovely. Thank you.
Do you see the presenter view or do you see the correct view?
We can see the presenter view, but that's all right.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just go. All right,
yes.
You can see it now? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So I have already talked about this, I think. So raw material sourcing. Now, in most companies I've worked in, like every company I've worked in, about 90% of the fabrics come from Italy. And this is like cotton, this is wovens, knits, etc. But silk, however, is still mainly coming from China. When I worked at Altuzarra, we were able to buy silk from Italy, but the silk in Italy is about $25 more than the ones from China. So the thing is that, Altuzarra was able to sell at a higher price point because it had the brand name. You can mark up the goods. The customers are willing to pay that price. So we were able to source our silks from Italy. However, in other companies, most of them, they source their silks from China. And that's from everything from charmeuse, chiffon, to file, to Duchess satin, etc. So, so right now, obviously with Italy being closed, all our fabric orders is currently stuck. We can't launch production. I mean, factories in New York are also closed, so we can't pretty much do anything. But yeah, so the way it works is that, in bigger companies, when we purchase bulk goods, we try and have a third party inspection, go and evaluate the goods before they ship out. But this happened only in big companies like Altuzarra and Alexander Wang. Smaller companies can't afford to have a third party to go inspect the goods before they ship out to the factories. So basically, we have the goods shipped to whatever destination, whether the production is happening in China or it's happening in New York, and often they need to be have a freight forwarder to clear it from customs when the shipment is of high value and large volume. So we would need to get a freight forwarder to clear it from customs. The documentation has to be all right, like, we need a tax ID number, the content of the fabric, how it's woven, whether it's, what is that? Every detail. When we're importing like fur and horn buttons, we have to specify whether actually we have to specify the scientific name of the animal, the country of origin of the animal, whether the animal is farm raised or captured or wild. So all those details come into play because they don't get released from customs otherwise. We look at, so garment manufacturing. So currently at Prabal Gurung, we manufacture 90% of our garments in New York City. Sweaters, however, sweaters like sweater knits, we in every company I've worked in, we've never been able to do sweaters in the US because there's no manufacturing facility as such, there's no capabilities as such. So like in Altuzarra, we manufactured knits in Italy and China. At Prabal Gurung, we manufactured knits in China and Nepal, whereas all the cut and sew, wovens, cut and sew knits happens in New York City. And when you go, if you've been to New York, those buildings that you see between Times Square, between 40th Street and 27th Street, between 8th Avenue and 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue, those are all factories. Those buildings, they house factories. So if you go in there, there are just like tons of factories on every floor. Some of the factories we work with, they manufacture for Proenza Schuler, if you know, Zach Posen. I mean, Zach Posen has currently shut down his business, but Zach Posen, The Row, and Rag and Bone. So there's a lot of manufacturing that happens in New York City, to be honest. And in the US, New York is the hub for manufacturing. Though some manufacturing does take place in LA, but the industry is much bigger here in New York. And so, when you do New York production, domestic production, it's very hands-on. Like when you do overseas production in China, how we work is that we have a pattern. We convert the pattern into a DXF. We digitize it basically. We digitize the pattern. We email over the pattern, but we also send a sew-by sample. The sew-by sample with very technical really. And so they go and make a PP sample. They send us PP sample to New York for us to fit the garment. We either make pattern corrections to improve on the fit and finishing, or if the changes are very minor, we tell the factory in China, you correct and proceed. Correct and proceed means you can proceed to marking and grading. That's what happens when you finalize your pattern. You go into marking and grading, and then they would cut the goods, and the thing is that every little trim, like when you have to do bias tape, bias binding, the tape, the factory makes it. Spaghetti straps, the factory will do it. Hanger loops, which is basically spaghetti straps, the factory will handle it. Any fusing, bonding that needs to take place, the factory in China will handle it. We don't even see that, we don't hear it. Trims like hook and eye, zippers, anything, you know, all these little things. Even if a garment is missing a hook and eye or a button, you can't ship. So things like this are very frustrating because, you know, you have the entire garment ready, but a little piece can just like screw it up. So it's very, we don't see, when you do China production, it's, you know, you don't see what is happening. If there's any issue, the factory tackles it because there's no time to wait for New York to wake up and then get a communication on. They handle, they put out the fires. Whereas in New York production, it's very different. What we do is that first, the fabric, we have a cutting room. The cutting room sometimes is different from the sewing room. So one factory will just do the cutting and another factory will do the sewing. However, there are factories who will do the cutting and the sewing too. So now anything that needs to be fused or bonded, I'll have to have a different manufacturer do it. If I need bias tape, I have to have a different manufacturer do it. Any, like, sometimes, you know, if you're dealing in marking and grading, there's a different company that does that. So it's very, you're working with many vendors. So you're constantly on the phone, you're constantly visiting them. It's, you see, you hear every problem. There's a problem with the pattern, you hear about from the marking grading company. The marking grading screwed up, you will hear about it from the cutting room. So, you know, but the thing is that, the production time in New York is really fast because, you know, you're handling everything. You hear about the problems, you can put out the fires, you can address the issues right away. So production time in New York, we can produce 500 units in 3 weeks, no problem. But the problem is that with China, it's always been that they really take a long time to understand, to understand the patterns, like to get from pre-production approval to TOP approval. It's a long process, like because, you know, of course we are a high-end design company. There's so many intricate design elements that you can't just have a robot do it, like how the Gap or Zara would have like machines run it through. But here it's very it takes time. So always it seems that the factories overseas will take a really long time to get a pre-production sample approved. So as you know, we first get up, we give them the pattern and the sew-by sample. They give us a pre-production sample, and we keep making pre-production samples until we get what we want. We're ready to launch production. We go into marking and grading, and you cut and you sew. So now, let me see. So like I said, as a production manager in the production department, we do not alter designs at all, whatever you see. So the way it works is that when we present a show on a fashion week, we have 4 seasons, spring, summer, spring, fall, pre-fall, and resort. So the runway shows is basically only spring and fall. Whereas pre-fall and resort, we do not have runway shows. We just photograph it and launch it on the web or on Vogue. But so the thing is that once you showcase the collection, you open it on the runway, the very next day onwards, you open for market. That means the retailers, such as anybody, you name it, any retailer in the world can make an appointment and come to your showroom. So the sale, that's not my department, that's the sales department. They handle the market appointments. So the sales department will start the market here in New York and then travel to Paris, to London and Paris. So all the European markets can go to Paris, and you know and Middle Eastern will also come to Paris or London to view the collection, because you have to view the collection to place an order. So now, whatever you see, these retailers, they come, they look at the collection in person because they've seen it on the runway or they've seen it at a distance. They come to the showroom and they look at the collection and place orders. So now, whatever they see, that is what they expect you to ship. You cannot alter design. They will say, like, say for instance, this dress here, the neckline is pretty low. So that's not wear friendly. Like on the runway, it is fine to have that, but in the real world, not many people are going to wear that kind of a neckline. So the sales team would give us feedback to raise the neckline to make it bra friendly, they would say. Anyways, so, but our job is not to alter designs. We in fact improve the quality of the product. We improve, because many of these designs, sometimes they are rushed. They, suddenly these designers have a epiphany and they change designs. So they come up with garments that have not been detailed out to perfection. So our job is to look at the details to improve the fit and the finishing of the garment, and we do not alter designs. If anything, there's an issue, we have to get approval from the design team. Not only just the design team, the sales team would have to go back to the retailers who placed the order and ask them if it is okay. Would they still want their orders to be processed with the changes? So you see this garment here. The fabric came from Italy, a mill called Omnia Piega in Italy. It was already pleated. I mean, sometimes you could actually pleat it yourself, but this was pre-pleated. And this was just the process of it. Like, this was a pre-production sample, and you can see how it wasn't well done. You can see the messy tacking over here, and these are the fit comments I sent to the factory. It was produced here in New York, so you just stop by the factory and you really spell it out to them. And this is our TOP sample. So you see, like, our job is to improve, to perfect it. We can't ship subpar product. And similarly, and you see how we raise the neckline. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. Otherwise, everything else is the same. Now this is a dress again from this. I can't see my own thing, and I don't know, spring collection. The problem with this I bring is, like, I'm bringing up these garments and talking about the issues we face during the process. Like, this garment has all these different panels. They're not just different colors, but they were actually different fabrics. So there's a georgette, a chiffon, a charmeuse. And when you have fabrics like that, they're different in weight, different weaves. It's very difficult to perfect it, because they're all behaving differently. So you'll see that that was our pre-production sample. You can see how some parts are actually the hem is not leveled. It's because the fabrics are reacting differently. So this is our pre-production sample. We had to perfect it to get to our TOP sample. I mean, of course, the pattern has been made to reflect it, but when you actually make the sample, it behaves differently. So again, you have to go back and correct the pattern and then proceed that ways. And it was very difficult. So my job is to work with the pattern maker and also to check his cutter's muss, and the cutter's muss for this was like a lengthy thing, and it was like a jigsaw puzzle. Which one was combo 1, which one was combo 2? By the end of it, you wanted to kill yourself. So similarly, this is a cotton dress from the spring. Don't ask me, all the seasons blend in my head and I can't even tell what's what. But this is our TOP sample. You can see, like, forget the flowers, that's just an accessory and add-on, but we do not change anything. We manufacture what has been showcased, and that is our sole job. We improve the fit, we improve the finishing, because that's what a high-end product should be like. The inside should look as beautiful as the outside, but our job is not to alter designs. In fact, we improve them. If you can look at this dress here, I don't know if you can see the shirring on the bust. It's not that nice, but this is our production. You can see how it's even more beautiful. It's actually even more intricate. So my job is to basically try and get the best quality at the lowest price. So, basically this is a lot of handwork. So one time when I was giving a lecture at NIFT in Mumbai, a professor kept telling me like how, what was the question? I mean, it was a new term because, he was talking in terms of like mass production for a Gap or an H&M. Like, how do you, what's the time? Oh, I can't remember what he asked me, but it's basically how you determine the time spent on the garment. But like when it's machine made, it's easy to say that it takes this many minutes to make the garment. But when it's like a high-end product where there's a lot of hand sewing, this is a lot of handwork. It takes much more time, and obviously the cost is much more. So this is a dress we actually made for Isha Ambani when her brother was getting married. It was one of an old styled, redesigned a little bit, but this is what we made. And my job, so the thing is that I will go into the special projects we do, the Atelier Prabal, and how it works is that, maybe I'll come back to it, sorry, in a minute. So this is what we do. Like, this is again more shirring involved, and basically part of a special order. Again, now you see that this dress is made of silk gazar. Now things like the material definitely dictates how much labor is going to go into it and how much the cost is going to go in. Like when you look at it, Georgette, chiffon, charmeuse, one thing, but gazar, it's very hard to sew it. And you can see the ruffles on the shoulders. That's a lot of baby hem. Baby hem is expensive. And the way we look at factories too, like the Chinese factories are cheaper than the Korean factories. I mean, they're all New York factories, but they're actually not white people sewing the garments. They're Chinese and Koreans and Mexicans sewing the garments. So when we look at the Chinese factories, we know what quality to expect. When we want a higher grade quality, we go to the Korean factory, and also their baby hem is much smaller. So we are that detailed, and that's how you should be. So this is a lot of labor, a lot of ruffles, and that means a lot of baby hem, a lot of hours. And this is what we ship. That was the runway sample. This is our TOP sample. TOP is top of production. So it's the very first garment comes out from the production line. Like I said, again, we do not alter designs. We keep it the way it is. So now about this dress, this is a sequence dressed paillettes, really. The fabric actually came from Italy. It was pre-sequined, pre-embroidered, machine embroidered, obviously, not hand embroidered. Otherwise, it'll be tens of thousands of dollars. Now, the problem with this dress was that when you have the paillettes there, it's very hard for the needle and the sewing machine to pass through the paillettes. For some reason, this was still not the main issue of the needle because they were literally like plastic paillettes. So it was not so hard for this needle and the machine to pass through it. But however, once you sew it, the seams, they are irregular and they cut on your skin. It's very painful, actually. So what we had to do was that first the factory will do the cut work, and then we would go, me and my assistants and interns, we would go to the factory and remove the paillettes. But now the way we remove the paillettes it has to be careful because we can't cut the threads. You cut the thread, the whole thing will unravel, the whole line of sequence will unravel. So what we had to do was cut the sequence instead. So that's the amount of labor that goes into it. Also, we didn't want the factory to do it because we were already at the maximum cost. We have our target costs to meet our target margin. So say for instance, you have your in costing, you have your raw material costs plus the labor cost, right? And then of course there's a freight and duty, but since this was manufactured in New York City, there's no duty involved. But raw material cost plus labor cost will give you the FOB cost, which is freight on board cost. And what we do is that when you add the duties and the taxes and the freight costs, you get the landed duty paid costs. The landed duty paid costs is what you give to the sales team or to the merchandising team, and you tell them you can mark up from here to get your wholesale price and your retail price. So now, so when we're looking at the cost of the garment production and costing, we really have to look at how much labor goes into it too. So obviously getting the factory to remove the paillettes from the seam allowances was too much work. It would have shot up the cost of manufacturing and thereafter our target margin. So I went there with my assistants and interns to go and remove the paillettes. So like I said, we did not cut the strings, the thread, we cut the paillettes instead. It's from the cut work. So basically we're removing it from the seam allowance so that the factory can just run it through, and it doesn't affect, because if you look at on the side seams, there would be a rippled effect. And also the zipper, you can't zip up the zipper with the sequins cutting into it. So things like that. So there was a lot more labor involved. Imagine, something like this is not sold in volume. Like we sold maybe 100 garments. So it could be done. The thing is that, with certain garments which are very labor intensive, or gowns, they are sold at a higher price, and when you're selling something for $5,000, you don't get that many orders. You get a limited order, and that's how it works. So simpler garments, more commercial garments have higher order quantities on them because they're easier to sell, they cost less. Something like this. This is a fabric from Rio Pele, a mill called Rio Pele in Portugal. The thing is that with high-end product, design can be copied. Design, there's no newness. There's not much you can innovate really in design. It's basically the finishing, the fit and finishing of the garment. So when we look at this pair of pants, what makes it a high-end product is you can see the placement. The right leg and the left leg, they match. When we do the patterns, our pattern maker will lay out the placement. We call it the print placement. So he will attach parts of the print on the pattern itself, and the marking and grading company will know how to align it on the marker. And that's how we will cut, and that's how it will be sold. It has to be identical. You can't have the left leg mismatch with the right leg. So details like this is what elevates a product. This is an issue we had. India is really good with embroidery, with understanding patterns, whereas this project was being done with a factory in Nepal. Prabal wanted to work with this organization that hired widows or abused women, and there was a problem here. As you can see, they did not understand how to read patterns. They did not know how to read patterns. They just wanted to do the embroidery on running fabric and ship the fabric to New York, which is eventually what they did. But we were trying to get them to embroider on the pattern pieces. And as you can see, the image on the fit model, it's incorrect. That the left leg and the right leg, they should have been mirrored. It should have been facing each other, like how the pattern pieces are on the display. So things like this, it's very hard. So what I've found that with India, sometimes they try and alter our designs, which is like when there's shirring or there's pleating, they try and minimize it, but that's how it leads them into trouble. It gets them into trouble. And there should be a point when India also can manufacture high-end items instead of just doing embroidery, because right now I worked for multiple companies, Altuzarra, Alexander Wang, Cotton Franco, but we rarely manufactured garments in India. We only do embroidery in India. So that's a thing to look into, or that's an area where we can do better, where we can find factories who understand and respect the integrity of the design. Otherwise, it'll just be another mass-produced Zara pen. What difference does it make? Now, this is a fabric, again, sourced from Italy. This is what happens, sometimes it's very, let me tell you, there's a pattern here, as you can see. It's an animal print, but the thing is that the pattern is going the opposite way of the stretch, because it's supposed to have stretch, this fabric, and the stretch is on the stretch is basically the wrong way. So if we were to redesign the fabric, we would have to commit to a very huge order with the Italian mill. So we didn't do that. And also there was no time really for redesigning a fabric. So the thing is that, the warp and the weft, like the pattern does not match the stretch. So, but we made not fitted dresses, so we didn't really need to use the stretch. So we went ahead and used the stretch on the length of the fabric, but the stretch has to always be on the width of the garment, not the length, because that's where you need it. Now, when we come to custom orders, like this we have a lot of private clients. We do design clothes for Melinda Gates. We do designs for the Met Gala, for Oscars, Emmys, and what makes it a custom order is that we get the specs, the measurements from the client. The thing is that, when we look at marking and grading, every brand, like say an Alexander Wang, Altuzarra, they have their own sizing structure, right? Like at our current fit model at Prabal Gurung is actually a size 6, but we call her a size 4. That's because the target market for Prabal Gurung is women who are older, not a young market like Alexander Wang's. So our size, fit model is actually technically a size 6. Now, people are not built the same way. Some will have a longer torso and a shorter bottom, or vice versa. Some people will have a small waist but really large hips. So like not everybody is a true size 4, not everybody is a true size 8, but that's where custom orders come in, because we get your exact specifications, your exact measurements, bust, hips, waist, and we design something for you. That's how it fits so great. So this is like things like from the Met Gala, we get the model's measurements. We measure everything, and then we design the pattern according to her measurements. And similarly,
Magdalene, I had a question at this point of time. Like when you show like a Met Gala outfit, and when you say that you have you have measurements in advance, like what is the timeline that we're looking at in such a situation? Also, I just wanted to kind of let you know that the gathering that we have here today, not all of them are really fashion design students. So I've been getting like a lot of DM about it. So they are we have like certain technical terms like georgettes and chiffons is the most that we know as of now. We have some we are yet
okay, sorry, but those are just different weaves of silk and different weights, because the weaves and to the students, the weaves and the different weaves and different weight thickness of the fabric, it determines how garment is going to fall, react, and basically behave. And,
Right.
and
So
sorry,
here, for so for a typical look like this, the one that we have by Atelier in on Alia, we just want to know like what is the kind of timeline that a
uh,
specific garment like this
so,
would follow.
so like something like the Met Gala, because we know of the events and we prepare in advance, we have about, say, from December on, we start working on that, because the Met Gala is in May, first Monday of May. So we have enough time, and also, you know, the person who wears it will want to input her aesthetic sense into the design process. So it's a much longer process, because it's just not a one-way thing. The designer has his own opinion, and the wearer will also have, the client will have their own opinion. So they have to come to a common ground, and it's a whole creative process. So it's a much longer period. But when we do things for like the red carpet or this garment that she's wearing, we have a very short time. Like sometimes we do in 1 week. Yeah, 1 week we pull it out. Sometimes even 3 days. I mean, you know, when Isha Ambani came in, like her mother. Sorry, but they wanted like 10 garments in like a week. So and when you have issues like that, when you have like a load like that, you have to divide and rule. So basically you give one garment to each factory. You have your favorites, of course, but you can't give it to the favorites, as in like they deliver the best quality at the best price, but you can't overload them, so you have to distribute them, scatter it.
And also, I think they're like very influential clients, and I think with Prabal Gurung, there have been quite a few influential clients, and he's really picked up in the past few seasons, that I'd say, like making it to the Met Gala and Isha Ambani, and you know, like they are the most influential families across the globe, and also in India, so to say. So I think it is it's just the perfect clientele for a brand like Prabal, right?
Yes, but you know, the thing is that sometimes, I mean, we need the press. It's good publicity, but it's really like we want it now. It's just running around. But you know, like we made this dress for Alia, and it's silk file. Silk file. It's a very different weave and very thick fabric, and it's very limited. It's not like other qualities of silk. To your other students, I'm not explaining this to you, but you know, it's not a very common weave, a common silk fabric. So to get it, first we had to find the right color from the market, because this is a yarn dyed item, not piece dyed. So you can't just go to a mill and say, I want this dye to this color. They'll be like, you have to order 500 yards of it. And what will we do with 500 yards of inventory when we just need 10 yards? So it's really challenging. So we had to go source the right quality of fabric in the right color that would appeal to her. And also what her stylist ended up doing was that she washed the garment, and it was returned to us all wrinkled. I mean, things that, you know, when celebrities wear these garments, they're wearing it for free, because they're not buying it. I think they can very well afford it, but they're not buying it because they think they're doing you a favor for the publicity. So but now we're left with a very with a damaged garment. But so that's how it works. But you know, like we didn't even see Alia. She didn't come to the studio because she has a stylist. The stylist sends in her measurements, and we make a pattern from that. And that's what it is. With custom orders, you have to make a separate pattern. That is extra work. That's how it works. You make a separate pattern, you cut, you sew separately. It's separate. It's not your common graded size 0, size 2.
I have a very interesting question here. So a student wants to know, so what typically happens to a garment? Like there's so much hours of craftsmanship, and there's also so much fabric that's been bought. And so what is if there's like a custom order for an Isha Ambani or a Alia Bhatt or any of the royalties who worn like a garment like this, what typically happens to an outfit like this?
You mean to say like if it's
after
not
the appearance has been made? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
We
well,
just
once the appearance has been made, yeah.
So yes, we just put in our archive. We maybe if we can let go of it, we're not very proud of it. Like we will sell it at a sample sale, but otherwise it sits in our archive. And you know, the archive 5 years, 10 years from now, or somebody else might want to wear it who might be that size. We could all do minor alterations, but it sits in our archive basically. And yes, like you know. The major amount of work is basically you have to make the pattern, because I keep saying pattern because you know the pattern is a blueprint of the dress. If the pattern has to be perfect, if the pattern is wrong, your fit will be wrong, you know. So the thing is that many of the fashion design students, they might just envision a career in as a designer, but the fact is that there's so many other areas that you can be involved in. You can do fabric research and development. Pattern makers earn so much in New York City. They dictate, we set our schedule according to theirs, you know. So there's so many avenues you can do. Technical design, of course, and you know, you can just go and do costing, but there's so many other aspects and avenues besides becoming a designer.
Right.
So I have a question. Can I ask?
I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all,
Magdalene, do you Piyush, I'm so sorry. Just a second. Magdalene, do you want to finish your presentation? I just sort of got very excited. Piyush, can we hold on to that question?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Magdalene,
whatever. Magdalene? I don't mind.
Okay. Go ahead, Piyush. Go ahead then. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, Magdalene, I'm really glad that you're having a session with us here, and like really amazing one. Firstly, so like now I have a question. Like, I mean, there are fabrics and pieces flying in from various parts of the world. And you being the production manager, you have to make sure that each designer piece or custom piece that is created is so exclusive and like, you know, so out there. So I just wanted to ask, like, how does a brand like Prabal Gurung manage to reduce carbon footprints, because the whole industry is talking about sustainability today, and especially at these kind of events when it's Met Gala and like where people ask you like, what are you wearing? And so how does a brand like yours go ahead with that?
I did prepare some slides on sustainability issue, the sustainability aspect of the industry. I will go into it, but yes, like I mean, the carbon, when we look at the carbon footprint of Prabal, at the moment, it's pretty low because we are manufacturing everything in the United States. But of course, it's very limited when it comes to textiles because there are no textile mills in the US. You can maybe source cotton. That's about it. So yes, the fabrics do have to come in from overseas, but with this garment, I have to say, there are many silk suppliers here in New York City who are sitting on inventory. The silks are coming from China, but they have stores, retail fronts here in New York City. There are companies like Preview Textiles, Eastern Silk Mills. They actually have showrooms here in New York, and you can directly go to them and purchase. So like this fabric for this garment, it was purchased from B&J Fabrics in New York City. And some of them, I will say that some of these also buy dead stock. So like they have this like the silk suppliers, they work with textile mills in China and bring in the goods, right? But there are also stores like B&J actually also buy dead stock. I mean, this wasn't a dead stock. Dead stock means like, say Prabal have some leftover fabric inventory from 2012, and after years had passed, we do sell the fabrics to retailers here in New York, fabric stores here in New York, like Mood Fabrics. If you've heard of Mood Fabrics, they featured in Project Runway. There's another one called Fabrics and Fabrics. They very much sell to a Jewish clientele, because the Jewish have a certain dress code. They cannot just go buy clothes from regular retailers, because they have there's a code of them covering such and so they very much deal with tailors who make clothes for them. So they are open to the public. But like for this particular dress, this fabric was purchased here in New York City, but the origin of the fabric is China. So, and then also again, special orders, they made always made in New York City. They never made in China. They never made in China particularly. As they made in New York City. Sometimes we make it in our sample room. We do have sewers in our workshop, but this was made in a factory that also manufactures for Marquesa and Brandon Maxwell, if you know. So this was made in New York City. And also, like I said, there's a lot of manufacturing that happens in New York City. So anything like the lining from the lining that gets involved here, there's a corset, a bustier construction. So there's under wire, there's boning, all of that can be procured from New York City. So for all our domestic production, New York production, we purchase these trims like boning, zippers, stabilizer, Siri, the interlinings basically. We purchase them from New York City. We don't get them all the way from China. And also we don't mind if it costs extra, because we are charging her, I mean, okay, not in this case, we're not charging her, but some custom orders, we do charge a lot more. Like sometimes it's 3 times, sometimes 5 times the price. So we can afford to use very high quality trims.
So
Thank you so
basically, it is also, you in the very beginning, you also happened to speak about the fashion week. Since you work for 3 legendary brands, so what do you think is the order of preference for these fashion weeks, to showcase at these fashion weeks? Like would Prabal target like a London more than a Paris, or a like how do they shortlist these fashion weeks and where to showcase? And yeah,
I do know 1-2 designers who decided, American designers who decided to showcase the collection in Paris, but usually, for American designers, the bigger market is the US really, and the Middle East and other countries. I don't know how it works, but I think it must be hard to get into another country's fashion list. Like if you showcase where you're based, really, it's much easier, because then you're ending up flying collections across, and things get stuck in customs. Many things get stuck in customs. Sometimes they are shocked, like how does this dress cost $5,000? Sometimes the shipping industry, the packaging industry does not understand that. They can't wrap their head like, what is it? And so anyways, but to be honest, I do not know what are the criteria for you to showcase, in case Prabal thinks like he's become very high end and wants to showcase in Paris. I do not know what the criteria is. I have to find that out.
If you don't mind, I have a question
we
related
have
to the topic.
a lot of questions.
Sorry?
Yes.
I have an announcement to make, please, for all students. If you have questions, please put them down in the chat box. We will return to you one by one. Ankita ma'am, please continue.
Yes. No, actually, it's just that. So I want everyone to kind of know things from Magdalene. So I think we can start taking questions, Gauri, because we might just be falling short of time.
Go for it.
I have a question about the previous topic you were explaining about production. So for companies, if you've heard of Shivan and Naresh, they make
Yes,
they have a
I'm not.
very niche market. They make holiday luxury products. So in that case, they have a very specific, requirements of product. The material of the cloth and everything. So in this case, what do you do if the pricing of the shipping and transport, import, everything is much higher than the whole actual production of the product? So in that case, what would you do? Do you produce the product in that country itself, or do you find a cheaper, I don't know, option for that?
You mean to say if it gets too expensive to ship the fabrics from one country to another country for
Yeah,
manufacturing?
yes, even before or after manufacturing, either way.
Okay, so the thing is that when we're looking at most of our fabrics come from Italy. In most of the jobs that I've had and companies that I've worked with, 80% of the fabrics come from Italy. So to manufacture garments in Italy, it's really expensive. Altuzarra, the company I used to work for, used to manufacture in Italy, but for other companies to manufacture in Italy, it's another price level. It's more expensive. So it is actually cheaper to ship it either to China or to New York City. And now, yes, because China is so much more cheaper that even after you added the freight and the duty costs and the shipping, the freight meaning shipping, freight costs and duty costs, it's still cheaper. But of course,
But over here, you're dealing with a niche market, so your order quantity is not going to be much.
Yes, exactly. So the thing is that when we're doing very high-end products, niche products, that quantities are not very high, we still get the fabrics from Italy or wherever it requires. Sometimes Switzerland, laces come from France. We ship them to New York City, so we incur a freight cost and duty cost on the fabric, but not on the garment, because the garments are actually shipped from New York City. We have actually not from New York City, from New Jersey. The warehouse sits in New Jersey, but sometimes like special orders, they ship the factory. The factory is 4 blocks away from our office. We work with 10 different factories in New York City, and they're all within a 2-block radius. 2-block radius is like a 5-minute walk. So we go take the garment and bring it, or we get a rack and roll it, or they hand deliver it. The thing is that when you are manufacturing in New York City, you are cutting out the import duty incurred on the garments, because import duty is basically a percentage of the FOB cost. So say a silk dress manufactured in China, there's an import duty of 6.9%. 6.9% of the FOB cost. FOB cost is the raw material cost plus the labor cost. That will give you the FOB cost. And say a polyester dress, it's 16% duty to import it to the United States. Viscose, 27% to import it from China to the US. So now I've lost my point. So you do incur these duty on the garments, but whereas when you manufacture in New York City, you are not incurring any import duty on the garment, only import duty on the fabrics. But also because Prabal has marketed himself as made in USA, and that's kind of an attraction for buyers, for consumers. So and we price our garments accordingly. We because of the quality of, not the quality, but the design amount of design that goes into it, and also because when you have garments that are more labor intensive, they tend to be more expensive, and when garments are more expensive, the orders are not huge. So it does not make sense to produce in China, quality and cost aspect of it. So yeah, I mean, yes, you're just incurring fabric duty on goods manufactured in the US.
So we have another question from Shaina. She's a PG student from Pune. Shaina, can we have you?
Yes,
Can
you hear me? Yeah, hi ma'am. So I wanted to ask your personal journey from being the production manager of Alexander Wang to Gurung, like what all major challenges that you that you experienced?
The challenges, is that when you work for a bigger company like Alexander Wang, you have more help. There are different departments. Like I mentioned, there's a technical design team of 4 people. There's a fabric purchaser. Yeah, there's a costing analyst. Whereas when you work for a smaller company like Prabal Gurung, you have to do it all on your own. I mean, there is a plus side to it because, it really teaches you a lot. When I worked at Altuzarra, I was also the sole production person doing everything from costing, fabric sourcing to technical design. But you learn a lot, and you understand how when an issue, like there was an issue one time with sewing an 8 mummy chiffon and using a 19 mummy charmeuse bias binding. I mean, you could just literally tear the binding from the edge of the fabric, but that's because the sewers were using a very high SPI, stitches per inch. Basically the stitches were very close to each other. They were literally cutting the fabric as they're sewing it. But if you did not have the experience of the knowledge of fabrics and the sewing aspect, you wouldn't know where the issue stemmed from, because the designers kept telling me there's something wrong with the fabric, but no, there's nothing wrong with the fabric, there's something wrong with the sewing. So it's very educational to work for small companies because you have to wear many hats, but I mean
So would it be right to say that in order to get into product management, you need to have a design background?
Yes, I mean, because when you are studying design, you're studying patterns and technical design as well, because that comes under the category of design, I guess. I hope so.
Sure.
So yes, but be prepared, because there's not much designing you're going to do in production. It's just you basically looking at fit and finishing, like I said, fit and finishing and cost. Everything has to be done in the, there are really 3 elements: quality, cost, and timing. Quality, cost, and timing. I mean, if you had all the time in the world, yes, you can do things. Or if you had all the money in the world, you could do anything. But there are 3 constraints: cost, quality, cost, and timing.
Sure.
One thing, may I just address one issue? I mean, you might find it interesting because Prabal, I mean, he's projected himself as a brand who wants to be inclusive as an, like the industry really focuses on women who are lean, who are skinny, whereas he wants to be inclusive, and we offer plus sizing. That is, most brands will stop at a size 12. I don't know, sorry, I don't remember how sizing runs in India, but it stops at a size 12. But we offer even up to a size 20. Okay, so you offer up to a size 20, but because we have specific stores who cater to plus size women, and that's what they want to buy, just the plus sizes. But we have a problem at Prabal because we are using a fit model. We are using a fit model who's a size 4. I mean, we call her a size 4, but she's okay. We use a size 4 fit model. We grade it up, right? But the thing is that the way we're grading, this is the grading chart. This is the length. The length is just a 1/4 inch. Ignore that. But the width, as you can see, sizes 2, 4, 2, 6, 8. We use a 1 inch grade on the circumference, bust, waist, hips. And size 0 is 1.5 inches. But as you go to size 10 and 12, it's 1.5 inches grade. We do not use 1 inch anymore. But you can see that the length, it goes up by 1/4 inch. But now the thing is that with plus size women, it doesn't mean that they're growing vertically as they're growing horizontally. So the problem is that we need to have a fit model who's also a plus size. We need our patterns to be based off the plus size fit model. Let's just say she's a size 16. We cannot use a size 4 fit model and grade all the way up, because the body is very different, so that's one thing. Like, it's a challenge for us, because it's an extra cost to have a separate fit model, because we need to hire the fit model. Then we need separate patterns, and then marking and grading will need to be happening separately. The cutting would need to be happening separately. So that's added cost, and that's what we need to invest in if we want to really be inclusive, size inclusive.
So, speaking of these newer, issues, like I'll say how brands are becoming more and more sensitive about this kind of market that always existed, and now inclusivity is, pretty much the parameter and pretty much the motivation for a lot of brands. It's like the upcoming thing that the luxury brand, British luxury brand wants to address. There is also a newer thing. I just received a message from a student. We recently had the London Fashion Week announced that it's going digital and all. Do you see Prabal also doing like a digital fashion show?
Digital fashion show? Sorry, did you say digital fashion show?
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
okay.
digital,
I think in the times of coronavirus, sure, when we were all in lockdown and social gathering should be kept to a minimum, then yes. But the thing is that, people need to see the garments up close, because how can you tell quality, the flow of the garment, it's hard. I mean,
I think you have also very passionately shown us how you have like a piece on the runway, and then what all goes into like the kind of details that you have kind of shared with our students. It is obviously something that needs to be touched and felt to be seen, like even outside of the runway. So how do you think a brand like Prabal Gurung would be addressing those things if you cannot be putting out something on fashion show? Like, what is it?
The thing is that, even if we say we do a virtual fashion show, but that the retailers, their buyers for the stores, they're not going to place the orders without seeing the garment. They will come to the showroom to make an appointment to look at the garments. And when we have these, what we call market appointments, we also have a model walking in the garment, because again, they need to visualize it and see how it flows, how it moves. So nobody is going to be placing orders without actually seeing the garment. So the customers, like say we people might be buying online, but the buyers for those online stores are not going to be placing orders without actually having seen the product. And I think there's a few questions you had placed in the email, and that's what we're looking at. Basically, the industry, it's really, we're going to face a recessionary market after this, because people have been out of work, disposable income has come to minimum, and really, like, and also because of this pandemic, how it's basically a zoonotic spillover. It really highlights what we've been doing to the environment, and the fashion industry will really face some backlash in forthcoming months and years, really, because we are one of the biggest polluters after shipping and maritime, really, and we really need to address issues, because up to 2/3 of the sustainability, of 2/3 of the pollution that happens is in the raw material stage, and really improvements need to be made in the dyeing process, in the even weaving process, and also in the choice of fibers, really. And we see that how all these are basically news from the internet, like putting us in a bad light, which really we need to address, to be honest. So again, we pollute the water with our dyeing, and cotton growing takes up a lot of water, and all these have been addressed by the United Nations, and people are working towards it, but not enough light, because for a long time we just keep ignoring the environment. And again, like many of the plastics found polyester is basically a plastic, and many of these plastics wash down into the water, and really what we need to do is limit the use of polyester synthetic fibers, really, like polyester, acrylic. There was this whole movement against fur, and companies started doing faux fur, but faux fur is basically acrylic. And is that really more sensible? You know, you are protecting the animals, but then you're polluting the environment. So really, we have to look at things, because it's not, we are not in a very we're not in a position to be careless anymore. And I feel like there are many companies now who are starting up. Like, I will address again, all these studies have been found, like it's equivalent to 50 billion plastic bottles. So I think you know, our industry will very soon be regulated. And there are brands out there who have tried to remodel themselves, and where they put sustainability first and radical transparency. We have, for instance, this company, I mean, Zara puts up 24 collections per year, while H&M offers between 12 to, say, I can't even see my own slide anymore, but you know, like this whole idea of mass production maybe has gotten us into trouble, and soon there probably should be restrictions imposed on companies like Zara and H&M. And more and more brands are now focusing on the carbon calorie count, on the carbon footprint. We have this brand here, they're actually based in LA. It's called Reformation, and their brand, their whole entire collection is made from recycled fabrics. So in their website, if you go into the brand name, it's called Reformation, you will see their sustainability model, and you'll say how much water you're saving, how much carbon dioxide you've saved, and how much waste really you've incurred. And also there are these materials that you can use, you know, and step away from polyester, step away from acrylics, step away from synthetics, and use tencel, which is basically manufactured from eucalyptus trees, and then tencel lyocell, which is again regenerated cellulose fiber and part of the rayon family. There's modal, there's viscose. Viscose is another man-made fiber, but it's made from wood pulp. And then there's linen. Then there are companies, this particular company is working with a regenerated nylon, with basically recycled nylon. So, you know, so there are companies out there, and they are gaining traction. I would say that Reformation, if you check out their site, it's pretty, because they have a social agenda, which maybe millennials like, and also they are on top of trends. Now, there's this company called Everlane here. It's again based in California, I think San Francisco. And their approach is built to last, and their ethical approach, because it tells you how much exactly it takes to make the garment, like the material cost, the labor cost, transportation duty. This is basically transparency. And also it runs factory audits. Basically, even when I worked at Altuzarra and we sold to Saks Fifth Avenue, which is a very high-end department store, they would require, if we made anything in India or in China, they wanted us to provide a factory audit, basically a compliance audit, to evaluate that fair wages were issued to the workers, reasonable working hours, and their working conditions, whether they had clean drinking water, they had there's a fire safety. So things like these, they demand to see the compliance audit. They would send these inspectors from a third company. There was a company called Bureau Veritas. It's a third company. They would fly out to the factories and inspect and send their report to the retailer. And if it didn't pass the compliance audit, the goods would be cancelled. So that's a loss. So that's why that leads the designers, the design companies, to really know and deal with what their vendors, their factories look like. And so and then also there's this idea of quiet luxury. You know, there's this company called The Row, R-O-W, The Row. It's started by the Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, the Olsen twins. It's one of the best companies in America right now. They, you know, they cater to an older age group. I mean, it helps when you cater to an older age group because, you know, they're not worried so much about trends. They more about luxury and comfort, or well-tailored garments. They're all about the fit and finishing, you know, and they're not into the trends. So there's this, of course, there's this, it caters to a higher end market or a older age group, but we can see like with Reformation and Evelyn, they are coming, they are more moderately priced companies, more moderately priced brands, and they are coming, they're getting attention, and they're becoming very popular and legitimate, I would say. So as opposed to the quiet luxury to an older age group. Sorry, is someone trying to ask a question?
I think there's a bit of a network hang up this side.
Oh.
Please proceed there.
Yeah.
And then there's this other company based in New York. It's called Kriana, which is, again, if you look at their business model, it's produced responsibly to maximize the longevity of the garment, to extend its life cycle, because most of the Zara and H&M garments, they're focusing on they're trying to get people to buy and trash the goods, really. It ends up in the landfill. So of course there are these brands, like high-end brands, who cater to a different market, but then there is also the younger age group, the millennials and the Generation Z, who really, you know, they're all about fast fashion and social media. That's what fast fashion for social media gives you. Drop culture is basically the retail response to a high speed times and low attention spans. And this, again, I mean, you know, when you look at drop culture, it's basically limited release, which provides an element of exclusivity and scarcity. The see now, buy now, which is instant gratification, and it relies heavily on social media or influencers, which is basically your selfie culture. This attracts just Generation Z and millennial customers. It's, again, a different market. And also, it does not work in the regular fashion calendar where you have 4 seasons. They can drop every 2 months, every 3 months. So again, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's hard to please everyone. There are different target markets. You have to look at what your target market is. So if you're attracting Generation Z and millennials, maybe they are fashion conscious and status conscious, that it work for them, but not for an older age group, not for women in their 30s over. It's really not.
Sure. Magdalene, I hate to, yes, who's this?
Piyush.
It's
Can I ask?
Piyush, ideally, I would suggest you please put in your questions in the chat box like all other students are putting. We will not be able to make any special exceptions.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
Thank you very much. Magdalene, we do have a lot of questions from a couple of students in the chat box.
I'll take questions because my presentation is over.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. So the first question that I have to you, from a couple of students together, I am kind of observing a trend where students really would like to inquire about how would you describe a typical day in the life of a production manager, and what exactly sort of encapsulates the kind of work that you do?
The thing is that at every given moment, I'm working on 3 different collections. So say the new collection showcased on the runway, so I'm doing costing for that collection. I'm either doing costing for that collection and also trying to place fabric orders, because the lead times for fabrics, for raw materials, is very high. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So I have to place the orders in advance. And then there's current production going on and we have to run quality control, because especially with everything that's made in New York, I personally go and inspect the goods in the factories. I actually check every single one garment. Thankfully, we're not a mass-produced company, but you know, sure. I go and inspect. And then we're working in third collection that is in play. We're doing pre-production samples. So at a given season, I'm working on 3 different collections and at different stages.
I'm sure. There's another question here that we have, which is asking about what is your take on the production process, and how do you think the pandemic has affected production overall?
Oh, definitely. It's really affected us because, you know, like Italy and China, we work mainly with Italy and China. I mean, if you don't have the raw materials, what are you going to make? You need the materials. And like I said, we can't just pull out any fabric and ship it to the retailers, because you have to sell what they saw. You can't alter the goods. And so, I mean, first of all, raw material standpoint, but even the factories here in New York are closed, so we can't do anything. So it's really put us into a halt. But the problem now is that once the market opens, all those goods that we are trying to manufacture or trying to get out into the retail stores will have to go into discount, because they're in the wrong season, they're in the wrong, either like the mental season, the fashion season, or the climate wise, like we'll be selling summer clothes in the winter. So it'll be heavily discounted. That will affect our target margin. We might just be able to make our costs, maybe not, I don't know.
Sure, thank you so much for that. We'll take up the last two questions. Masoom, can we have your question? Are you here, Masoom, with us? Masoom, can you hear us? Would you like to come and ask your question? Okay, we've lost Masoom. Piyush, you could quickly go ahead and ask your question in the meanwhile.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. So my question was in regards to H&M and Sabyasachi collaboration, where H&M is a brand which is opening their factories in Bangladesh at this point of time, and not respecting workers, not respecting sustainability. And where Sabyasachi is a brand which is core to its values, which produces locally, and cares about animals and their where the whole brand is coming from. Do you think that the collaboration is a brand value suicide from Sabyasachi, or do you think it's all fair? And what would a brand like yours do if such kind of a collaboration was offered?
Yeah, when I was working at Altuzarra, we did do a collaboration with Target. A Target is like a Walmart. It's like mass-produced junk. Now, just to give you an idea of how it worked, because now Joseph Altuzarra at that time was just offering his design aesthetic, his design values. We did not handle production. For a company like, say, H&M to be able to produce, to be able to sell the goods and make a profit, they would have to be made at their factories, at their cost, right? So they won't be using Sabyasachi's factories, because they're like workshops, really. They're high-end workshops. They'll be using H&M's factories in third countries, because first of all, they have to make a profit. It has to be done at a certain price, at a certain cost. So for that standpoint, yes, we would not have any control on the production. We would just basically, even the fabrics, no, because the fabric quality, the fabric costs has to be very limited. It has to come down. So we do not have control on the raw material. We do not have control on the labor. We just offer the design. Now, why would a brand do that? Maybe to gain a whole new set of customers, maybe to get a whole new group of people to follow them, and hopefully they'll at some point want to upgrade and buy your goods. So I think it's just a matter of trying to reach a wider audience and get and dip your toes into a new market.
Sure, thank you so much for Magdalene. We'll quickly round up with the last question. We have Masoom here.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Masoom, go for it.
So my question is, are you looking after the production of the mask that Prabal Gurung is making now?
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope you publish this, or you don't go on social media and tell people about it. But it really bothers me that the fashion industry is jumping. It's just like they see this opportunity to hype themselves, to get marketing influence. But those masks, first of all, they need special material. They need to be a microfiber that the virus cannot infiltrate. Like, how the hell are we supposed to make like high-tech, high-quality masks? We do not have the raw materials, first of all. And if you really want to use just fabric, cover a scarf, your chunni is enough. Like, so I really, like, it really it shows how shallow our industry is. We should have some integrity and decency and not like jump into the bandwagon. I mean, companies like Louis Vuitton, at least they are using this because they make perfumes, they have sanitizer, they have alcohol, and it works as a sanitizer. I can understand that, but this is not the time for fashion companies to really try and use this as a marketing strategy. So I'm not working on the mask project.
Sure.
And is it really safe? I mean, you know, you need filters there.
Sure, sure. But thank you so very much, Magdalene. I'm sure you're tired answering all our questions, and this has been a very exciting and a very interesting experience for us as well.